Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Nesting Eagle Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. My name is Drew. I'm here with my co host, Beth. Beth, how are you?
Doing okay?
Yeah, I know it's starting to get a little bit warmer, slightly,
Very
Wisconsin.
slightly.
And excited to report we have our first sighting of incubation in the bald eagle nest watch, which is really exciting. It's super early, but we always have, I don't know, probably a handful of nests and this is one of them that usually gets started early. So that's really exciting, and they'll be off and running. I guess our probably one of our main themes is egg laying for this one, and we're going to start off. Let's get going with Jackie and Shadow, our old friends from last year at Big Bear Valley Eagle Cam, and they have laid 2 eggs. Let's see, they one on the 23rd and one on the 26th. There has been some scuttlebutt that they're maybe possibly laying an egg. I think Jack is going to be laying an egg maybe within the next few days because they did have 3 eggs last year. So if everything goes well, it's possible that she'll be laying a 3rd egg. This is a shot that view I grabbed of the 2 eggs. Very exciting. These are probably the 2 most popular pair in the country on the Eagle Cam. So.
Most watch pair for sure.
Yeah, they are. So excited for them to start again. So hopefully it's a little less drama this year, but we'll see what happens.
Well, they've had some rough years. I mean,
They have, yeah.
this nest teaches you that not every year is a solid slam dunk for raising offspring because they have struggled.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of it's luck too. It's just
It's
that's
weather.
yeah. But that's a great place to have a nest. That's just a beautiful view.
I'd like to live there.
yeah, in California. So they're off and running, and as we said, we have at least one. We probably have a couple, if I was to guess by now. And I think Beth, you have one in particular. It's
We have one that's always early.
Yeah, early.
Yeah.
So
I haven't been able to get by to check on it, but we always call the offspring Baby Huey because they're huge compared to everyone else's offspring.
Yeah, so very excited for that, and we'll keep an eye on Big Bear again as they get started. It's always a fun lesson to take a look at this cam and go from there. So on our next one, if we can get this to work, is the Winter Park nest in Florida. We're going way down south. Farther. I just wanted to talk about this. This is one thing about Eagles' sibling rivalry is kind of I wouldn't say it's a huge problem, Beth. I don't, to be honest, I don't see it a lot in the nest watch. We see it on the cams once in a while. It does happen when things get tight, and I think we probably want to take a step back and kind of understand how the whole dynamic works at first. And when these nest territories, these eagles pick these nested territories because they're there's a good large tree that they can build the nest in, and also it has to be a good territory that has food sources. Abundant food sources, and that's a real big factor in how many eaglets they ultimately fledge. If there's a big part of it is that they have a good source of food close by. In this case, it's there's a couple of things that can go wrong that cause sibling rivalry. In this case, at Winter Park, I believe there was a intruder. So there was another eagle in the area kind of messing with the adult pair and kind of taking their attention. And in that case, this pair is trying to defend their nest and defend their eaglets, but they are not able to hunt as much. So that's what was going on. And fortunately, it looks like it's finally gone away. They've got that intruder out, and the both of them are getting food at a good regularity. And what this happens with sibling rivalry is it's usually just from a lack of food. It's kind of the survival of the fittest, and it's not the prettiest thing to watch, and it can be disturbing. But
it comes down to starvation,
Yeah. So they don't want, they'd rather have one strong eagle and one weak one that just doesn't make it than have 2 eaglets that are, kind of both in the same boat and they both, die. So I think that's why it is more the survival of the fittest. They're looking to at least have one eaglet make it through when times are tight and there's not enough food.
Well, the adults will definitely favor that behavior, and
Yeah.
it seems counterintuitive to us with humans, because we don't, sacrifice one child for another, but it's different in nature if there's just not enough food to be had.
It's
And we
definitely
did see it happen quite a bit this last year. Our nests of three, where they were all fully grown eaglets, they were, at the getting closer to the 3 month age where they were big. They were very sizable birds. And in four nests, we had the third eaglet go MIA right towards the end. So that was odd to me, and we had never really seen that before here.
Yeah, yeah. So it does happen, and as I said, it's mostly food. There's other, obviously there's other things that can take out an eaglet, disease and biting flies and other stuff. Being preyed upon as well does happen. But yeah, this is one we'll watch too. Hopefully they're kind of they don't have any other issues, but it happens, and I know just from reading some of the comments, it's a little rough, especially on
Yeah.
a Eagle Cam. People watching that, and I would highly recommend it. If it is a problem for you, just pull yourself away from it. It looks like it's okay now, but if there is a Eagle Cam that your favorite Eagle Cam and they do have some sibling rivalry issues, I for your own sanity, I would not watch it. It's just it's hard to watch. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that happens, and it's these are wild animals, so we kind of have to keep that in mind, that these are wild animals. These are not human beings. They are going to try to have as many survive as possible. And then another good example is our other North American eagle. They typically just raise one eagle in
The
the
golden
golden
eagle.
eagle. Yeah, and they might have a second that's kind of, if the first one doesn't make it, they have that second one, but
You have the spare.
yeah, basically. So as far as eagles go, the bald eagle raises a lot more young than most of the other eagles. I know a lot of the ones down in the rainforest and stuff. Those types of eagles, the Filipino one, I believe, only raises one, and a lot of those, it's just one and done. So we're kind of lucky as far as the eagles go with most of the time one, but sometimes multiples and sometimes even triplets. So we got to keep that in mind, that they're actually generating a lot more offspring and a lot more fledglings than a lot of other eagles in the world. And
I think another thing to remember too is wherever you're watching this, we do these podcasts a bit for our volunteers that are here in Wisconsin, but it is true of Wisconsin, and I'm sure it's true of other states, that the DNR and U.S. Fish and Wildlife are not going to interfere. If a bird isn't getting fed in a nest, no point in calling them. They don't have people who can climb these nests and rehabilitate a eaglet that's been picked on, and it just a they're not going to do it, and they don't have the manpower to do it, and they don't have the funding to do it. So unfortunately these cameras are there just to capture nature, and I said unfortunately. I'm grateful they're there. Very I think it's really fortunate that they're there and that we get to watch them, because, Drew and I learn a lot as well. So it is great for us, but you can't take it to heart so much that you are looking for intervention, or that you're doing something like putting food out on the road. That's something you can't do. The parents have to learn on their own how to take care of their young. Otherwise, next year they're destined to make the same mistake. So there's a learning curve here, and you have to let nature be nature without our interference.
yeah, because the vast majority of the nests in bald eagle nests don't have cameras. So we
Yep.
take a snapshot. Our volunteers are out there for an hour or two a week, so we get a snapshot too. And there's a lot going on, so there's a lot of stuff that happens at a nest that just isn't observed. So the eagle cams are great, but in some cases, when stuff goes wrong, it can be dramatic, and it's you know it,
It can go very wrong.
yeah. So it's and a lot of these groups, they just can't intervene, and they shouldn't intervene. Usually, our tip at the nest watch is if it's in the nest, if something happens in the nest, we won't get involved. There was one case, kind of a different case where both the adults disappeared, and actually Beth was part of that rescue. And I think we headlined it. We did highlight it at one of the pods, or
Did
earlier
we? I don't
pods.
remember if we ever got around to it.
Um, I think we did. If we didn't, we
Okay.
should. But anyways, that was a real rare case. But most times we're not going to intervene, and we just can't.
Well, and that was us getting approval and me finding an arborist
Yeah,
willing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and we had to have US Fish and the DNR's approval to do it.
yeah,
So not a simple task.
yeah.
And
It's not. It's not.
yeah, and I
Once
was
they're
taking a COVID test in the car on my way there. Yeah, that was a fun day.
yeah, yeah. It was a crazy day. But yeah.
But
So
we found two eaglets instead of just the one that we thought we
yeah,
were going to rescue. So
yeah. That was a cool story. If we I think we did, but maybe we'll rehash that story because that is a cool story. But it's one of those things that once they're out of the nest, if we have fledglings fall from the nest or just the nest collapses and we have to, that's when we get involved. That's when we can get a rehabber in. If they're on the ground and catchable, we can get involved. But up in an 80, 90 foot tall tree, it's really, really hard to do anything. And it's nature, and that's how it's gonna play out. And
those
it's
nests are huge.
yeah, and we just gotta kind of accept it because there is, and there's always gonna be some fatalities. It's just the nature of wild animals and nature. So it is what it is, I guess. um, but yeah, I really like this picture that you took, Beth. I don't know where I was going with it, but just wanted
He
to
just
just wanted
liked
to
a
show.
happy eagle picture. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll break it up a little bit. This is a beautiful shot of one of
Well, I am not
Angus.
finding many eagles at their nest, so
Yeah,
I was surprised to find one at its nest. I was showing new watchers where their nest was, and there she was looking fabulous.
yeah. Beautiful bird.
Um, But most of any eagles that I'm seeing around, and a lot of them are subadults, are along the lakes and roosting in trees communally where there is still apparently open water. I can't see the open water, but there must be for us to have some eagles hanging out here yet.
Yeah, yeah. And it's as we've been talking about the weather's been pretty gnarly in Wisconsin being so cold. But these birds are, and we'll kind of get into it a little bit later.
Yeah.
But they're very equipped for cold weather. They don't have any trouble with extreme cold. That's
Well,
they
like we showed you last week, they were standing out on ice for hours. They're engineered to be able to do that and not freeze. And, they're perfectly adaptable to it.
Yeah, and if you are in, the Midwest or in some of the colder areas, and you're looking, and you have an eagle nest near you, and you're a little afraid that you haven't seen them and they're not active, I would give it some time. They're definitely in survival mode. As you can imagine, starting the breeding season and doing, the talon locks and nest building and all those processes that they do during when they start the breeding season, it takes a lot of energy. So at this point, if it's really, really cold, they're just trying to survive and keep
Or they're
as much
going
energy.
someplace a little warmer. They're trying to shield
Yeah,
themselves from the wind because the wind is the bad part.
yeah,
The cold you can almost take, but yeah, they're protecting themselves, getting
yeah,
themselves out of the wind.
yeah. And fully, they can fluff up their feathers to get that warm air under them. It kind of generates like a mini heater for them, and they're doing a lot of things to stay alive. And that's what they're doing, and they're not going to be as much concerned about starting the breeding season and expending all that energy, and then laying eggs takes a lot of energy for off the female and all that. But once that breaks, which I think you said, it's going to get better if I remember
Slowly
correctly, Beth.
creeping up. Next week, Wednesday, we're supposed to be up to 28 for a
Oh
high.
wow.
Today is -5 for our low
Yeah,
tonight.
Yeah, so
not
he'll
taking
he'll
into effect the wind chill.
once 20's pretty typical for this time of year in Wisconsin. So
Hmm.
they'll get started. They know about that's familiar temperatures for eagles, and they'll get going. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a lot of reports of eggs being laid more. That one that I got today, I was really surprised, but it's actually right by the Wisconsin River. So it's likely by a spot of the Wisconsin because it's such a big river, and there's usually openings on the Wisconsin in parts. So they must have some openings where they can generate and get food nearby, and that's probably what's going on at that nest. So
Well, I have certainly seen copulation by this time quite often near the
yeah,
nests. And I'm not even seeing eagles near the nest,
yeah,
let alone
yeah,
copulation. So we're gonna probably have a slightly slower season.
yeah. And I think we mentioned this before, but most of the nest, and you see this on the eagle cams as well, they're pretty predictable when they're going to lay eggs. But things like weather and other factors is probably going to push them back a little bit. So these eagles that get started, they might be a week or two behind what they usually do, which is fine. They'll still get it done. It's just they're pretty consistent on their timing year after year, especially if it is the same two members of the pair. It seems to stay pretty consistent. And next, we're gonna
My
talk a little
heartbreak.
bit about. I'll let Beth kind of tell the story of what this, and we'll kind of discuss what happened
Hmm.
at this nest. So take it away, Beth.
Well, well, you hear us often talk about Brenna, and if we keep promising we're gonna have Brenna on, and Brenna will be on soon, I'm sure. But we got a person who called in a nest, and it's a path that I travel somewhat regularly. So had it not been called in, I would have seen this nest. It's in a busy area and it is near an airport. So it was pretty exciting seeing a nest getting built. Everyone around the location was super excited. We had, enthusiastic people letting us use their parking lot to observe it and even offering us snacks, restrooms if needed, which, you don't get in the middle of a forest. So we were really looking forward to this nest. And unfortunately, went there again and the nest was gone. So one of the watchers who was going to be watching it other than me and my husband kept asking me where the nest was. She sees two eagles, but where's the nest? And I'm like, if you aren't seeing the nest, you're having an eyesight problem. And we were kind of joking around, and she went back the next day and she started to talk to people around there and said that officials came in and removed the nest stick by stick because it was deemed to be too close to a runway. It was like a half a mile from the end of a runway. And it just, I understand that. I do, that big birds are a problem at airports. If we're not doing anything about the flock of geese that are flying across the airport, or, the red-tailed hawks that were nesting right near this eagle's nest, which its nest remained, or the snowy owls, why are we taking out an eagle nest where these guys are going to be at the nest? They're not going to be, um, flying at significant heights right in this location. This is their nest and they're going to be looking to protect it. And they're obviously pretty aware of the planes. So, they know not to get in the way in the path of a plane. So I don't know. I don't, and my feelings aren't exactly mixed. They come down very strongly on one side rather than the other. I would have just left the pair, made people aware of it at the airport, but I would be surprised if a lot of people had an issue with it, and especially since we have a lot of eagle nests at airports.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
No, there's definitely we have a fair amount
yeah,
by airports. It's not. It's pretty common, and
they're
yeah,
not on airport property. Well,
yeah,
some of them are actually. I take that back.
yeah. So
Um,
it's just I think it was
this one is not.
yeah, I think it was a situation where they determined something very quickly and took down the nest extremely quickly as well. And, I don't think it was warranted, but
And right
yeah,
before breeding season. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. And then, the thing about it was that, and Beth and we've talked about this as well, is this when a new territory emerges, in a lot of cases, they do what's called playing house that first year. So it's likely that this pair would have stuck by for a little while and then probably would have disappeared. They probably wouldn't have finished the season anyways. And, it would have bought them a little more time to figure out, what should we do with this? Unfortunately, it was taken down. Have you gotten any reports, Beth? Do you have anybody go out to that
nothing's
area at
there.
all?
They
Yeah,
haven't started to rebuild.
yeah.
No.
It's pretty late now, but again, they probably were going to be playing house and not
Right.
um, actually laying eggs this year. So it's unfortunate. It's frustrating because we want the Eagles to expand their territories, and this is in a more urban area, and that's something that we're striving for, and it's very exciting to have urban nests, to have this coexistence of people and eagles, and it's really exciting, but it was unfortunately not even given a shot to happen, and yeah, I don't think we both don't agree with it, but it happened, so um, we'll have to see what emerges. And pup.
Copper is joining us.
Yes, and Copper disagreed as well on that take as well. So
Copper builds nests himself, so
yes,
he enjoys a good nest.
and yeah, so it's unfortunate. We just wanted to bring that to light, and we can't really give a whole lot of details, but there were some decisions made at the federal level that we didn't really agree with. But
But nobody asked us, and I don't think they asked too many biologists either.
no, they did. They
I think it
didn't.
was a sort of a snap decision. But we're there's a lot of us mourning the loss of this nest.
Yeah. So we're hoping these two find, I guess, a better area, but we'll see what happens. Because unfortunately, in these urban areas, there's not a whole lot of there's just not as many trees, so it's a tighter area to
Right.
do everything. So
Well, it wasn't the greatest tree either. It wasn't going to last
yeah,
that long.
yeah, but and we have seen them successes with trees this size before in the past. So all right, and I guess we're kind of ending this one negative. I don't know, maybe we can.
Mhm. No,
But
I think this is a positive because I think more people need to be aware
yes.
of
So
these
if you are
situations.
on Facebook or social media, there's been some reports, and our friends over the National Eagle Center kind of called it out as too. And I remember seeing it multiple times on Facebook and going, this just doesn't feel. And I'll show you. Let me flip to the what it looks like, just so you're aware. This is one, but this is a group called Gentle Bird Moments. I'll let Beth kind of speak about them. She has a better idea what.
I think I had my Raptor day today where I go in and I clean up after some raptors and then I get to work with my raptor. And one of my co-volunteers said to me, I saw where we lost a bunch of bald eagles up by La Crosse, like it was Wisconsin, Minnesota, and that eagles are just dropping. There was like dozens of them that are dying from the cold. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. That doesn't happen. And so I said, and I have seen people warning of false stories going out there. And this is clearly false because bald eagles live in Alaska, they live in Canada, they live in very cold climates, including this one, and they are unbothered, unfettered by it. Even in this, minus 40 below, they'll stand on ice. Eagles do not have a problem with the cold at all. So a starving bird might have more of an issue, but the story is false. And I've noticed that several times with this group that their putting out false information, or they're taking pictures, they're slightly changing them, and they're putting another story with them. This photo, I believe, was from an actual raptor center where eagles were found to have all fed on a carcass of a deer that it was had small lead fragments, and it takes just such a like a little like I don't know, slightly bigger than a grain of sand, but not a pebble, will kill a bald eagle, and it's a horrible death. And that's what they were showing. And then this Gentle Bird Moments decided to make it about cold weather. So it wasn't factual. It isn't happening. National Eagle isn't happening. Other rehab centers have said it isn't happening. And so it's just really frustrating. There are a lot of people who are very upset on that site who are saying we need to do more to save our eagles. And okay, yeah, we do. Don't use lead. That would be a great start to doing more to save our eagles, because that is a huge problem for wildlife rehabilitation centers, is just it's unnecessary for lead to be out there. If you hunt, that's great. Use, what is it? Is it stainless steel, or just you can use steel bullets, you can use copper.
Copper, I think, is the big
Yeah.
replacement one.
There's two choices, and I know they're more than lead, but
Yeah,
you
there are.
cannot get microscopic fragments of lead, which tends to shatter out of, entrails and stuff that you're cleaning up after you've been hunting. That's, it's hard for us to see that, and so getting the site clean so that an eagle doesn't die a horrible death is really difficult. So it'd be good if in fishing and in hunting, if we just switched to a different material that wasn't such a painful death for our raptors and, other animals that come across the
Yeah.
lead.
Also, human beings, like if you're eating this
Yeah.
meat too, with little shards of lead, I mean, I think we both went through was it in the 80s with the lead
Well, I
paint?
definitely did. I'm
Yeah,
older than you, but I
yeah,
remember the oh my gosh, like Schoolhouse Rock,
yeah,
they'd have the commercials about don't let your child pick the paint off the windowsill and eat it. It's not
yeah,
candy. And
yeah,
I mean, that was the decade before you remember it. But it was, yeah, I mean, if lead is going to cause us to have learning disabilities in humans and cause us to have, you know, poor functioning organs and eventually death, depending on how much lead we can consume. It's not fair to not make that slight change for the betterment of our national bird.
yeah. So unfortunately, what I would say is make sure, um, especially on social media, you get these reports and they're searching for clicks or money or whatever they're trying to do. And a lot of them, as Beth mentioned, are AI generated. So this is just completely false. Eagles are masters of cold weather.
Of the cold.
Um, they know how to regulate. They know a lot of times you see them just perched. They're just regulating.
And that's why
Yeah,
in the winter, what you don't want to do is flush a bald eagle.
you don't. Yeah,
Give
or
it
other
its
birds
space,
too. Yeah, yeah,
let it conserve its energy and its resources. So, but be careful, because this place is not asking for money yet, but they have 192,000 followers.
those
Those
are.
guys should follow us,
Yeah,
because we'll give them the straight facts.
yeah, and we can
And
give them good stories. We have great stories that we can
we
tell
do
about
give
eagles that are actually true, not these
that
bogus
actually
ones.
happen. The thing too that just drives me nuts is the AI little eaglet with the white head and the white tail. And,
Yeah,
they don't look like that. They're
yeah,
brown for the first several years of their lives with
yeah,
white highlights in some areas, but certainly don't look like the classic bald eagle until they're around 5 years of age. So the AI in looking at that site too, it's almost the same eagle that's being used over and over again in stories, and they're telling heartwarming stories. They just don't happen to be true, and they're
yeah,
not based in fact. So you could walk away thinking you know a lot about bald eagles when in fact you're getting wrong information.
Yeah, and that's always dangerous. And there's a lot of things that I've heard, and Beth has probably too. That's just like, where did you hear that? And a lot of times it's sites like this that just,
Yeah. Well, we've
just
already talked about it last season, but I said the next thing I'm going to read from this site is that eagles go up to the top of mountains and they knock their
yeah,
beaks off,
yeah,
and it
like
takes months for their beak to grow back. And, people have asked me, is that true? And I'm like, that's called dying. That's
yeah,
death. There's nothing for an eagle to eat on top of a mountain. It's
yeah,
just, it's some goofy story someone made up, and it's getting a lot of play,
yep,
but also false.
yep.
They
So we
can't
just
regrow
wanted,
their beak and they can't regrow their talons. They
yeah,
can't.
and they can't go. They can go up pretty high, but once you get at a certain altitude, they're not. They can't. They can't. Not many birds can go up that high. That's
Right.
not.
And there's really
So
nothing to eat up there. And
yeah,
they're a fish-based bird.
yeah.
Their preference is for fish. So,
Yeah, I mean they
um,
like to soar up in the, soar up a little bit, but it's not. They're not going to be way up there. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, we just wanted to make people aware of that. Just, you know, do the research and look at it because I had seen it a couple of times and I didn't, I just clicked through it. I didn't really read all of it, but I'm like, that seems very odd. Um,
Yeah.
and it should have, it should have put up red flags with me, knowing as much as I know about eagles that this does just doesn't sound right. So
Well, and I'm gonna take it like kind of a step further too and say, I think ultimately eagles would prefer this weather to 90 degree
yeah,
with, a 70 dew point. Looking at eagles panting is not pretty, and they get really warm. I know chickens for the most part would prefer really cold weather than really hot weather.
yeah,
So and we have chickens. um yeah, chickens don't really seem to care all that much about the cold weather, but they do really notice it when it is super hot and humid.
yeah,
um so that's something to be aware of too.
yeah.
The cooler weather is probably more preferred.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as you get at the end of the season, that's why we have those like real cutoffs where it's around usually around 4th of July is when the last fledglings leave the nest, and that's usually pretty late, just because it starts getting very warm and they basically get baked in the nest. So it's not good for them, and they're not as equipped for the cold. And this is another reason with, our eagles down in Florida, they are, they're much further along in the process now because they need to get out of that nest and be
Before they
able to
cook.
fly and get to water or whatever, once those really hot temperatures hit Florida. So, and
And
that's,
then the
yeah,
flies.
yep,
I mean, yeah,
yep,
it's rough watching babies being attacked by flies and pestered to the point where they'll jump from the nest just to
yeah.
get away from them. So that's a reason why they finish up by July, Drew is saying, because that's no fun.
All right. Well, I think that's it. You know, as
Flies are
always,
no fun. That's how we're gonna end that
yeah,
one.
yeah. But, I think that season one we had always ended with a positive note. So I'm just gonna end with this beautiful bird, that picture of. That's why we're here. That's why we love eagles. It's just watching these amazing birds.
And
Um,
what a great thing to not expecting to see one, and
yeah,
he was just there, bold and
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. So, um, as always, hit that like button, subscribe, tell your tell your eagle friends about us. We're trying to build our audience, and I think we're pretty much the only podcast that does what we do. So we're kind of unique. Um, that's always
And
always fun.
you never know when a dog may appear.
Yes, yes. And also, if you like the email nestingeaglespodcast@gmail.com, you can contact us, send us pictures, send us comments, send us feedback. We love feedback too as well. With that said, we'll sign off now.